when it starts.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Scotty GLL coming at you with a part two for you. It's going to be Alex playing with fire. Go check out his stuff. He's putting out daily content pretty much. And we got Ravi checking in at Budapest, man. What's going on, guys?
Doing great, brother. I'm rocking a buzz cut now. I've shaved off my long, pretty hair, and I even have an eyebrow slit. We're experimenting with a little bit of an edgier look. How are you, Alex?
I'm good, man. Just converted to Islam, following in my prophet's Andrew Tate's footsteps. So next, I'm going to go to Romania. That's where Mecca is nowadays. No, I'm doing good, man. Yeah, well, I wanted to make things funny. All is well. Yeah, just been working a lot, making content. Gonna have some really juicy collabs coming up. So yeah, man, looking forward to this convo.
Changing the world, brother,
Cool,
changing
man.
lives. Yeah. Even my homies back in the day, like who like I came up with, they're watching your texting advice and shit. I'm like, yeah, Alex is fucking cool as hell. I'm gonna chat to him. They're like, oh my God, I learned how to text from him. So you're doing some great shit. And to
Nice.
kind of build on this, we want to learn a few more things, Alex, and we want to bounce some ideas off you. So question one that we're gonna put through your brain today. So, all right, man, online culture in 2024. Okay, like many dudes' experiences on the apps and in the dating culture that we have today, you know what? It can be quite negative. And I'm talking about guys who just aren't getting any kind of results, aren't getting outcomes, are getting a little jaded. And would you believe, my ear on the streets and talking to a lot of women talk about how they've not necessarily loving the culture today either.
Oh, totally agree. Yeah, I've done the experiment. Most women,
Yeah.
yeah, you're 100% right.
Yeah, I know you did the experiments chatting to them, and when you hear from the ladies, they'll talk about how there's just no good guys left, how men aren't really looking for anything serious, how men aren't masculine or they don't see why they would want to be with a guy.
Right, right.
My question is, are men in decline? What's happening to them?
Okay, yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. So, in terms of the first thing you said about the online culture, so kind of my thought has always been the internet can be extremely beneficial or extremely detrimental to your life based on how you use it. There's so many people who have, like, I call it, what's the term? I think it's internet or online brain rot syndrome. It's like kind of like a funny term. It's not like actual medical thing, but it's basically people who spend way too much time online and they think that's what the real world is like, which is not. Like a lot of these bubbles. You see this with, like, for example, liberals, like hardcore liberals, right? They think like, oh my God, everyone's worried about trans issues and shit. The average person doesn't give a fuck, right?
No.
So and you see this on the far right too. But you also see this in pickup, and especially the red pill and the manosphere. They think, for example, like the girls they see, because they don't go out and talk to girls. So like when they see girls on Fresh and Fit, they're like, yeah, this is what the modern woman is like. As a side note,
Mm.
modern woman is not like what you see on Fresh and Fit. There are some girls who are like that, but even in Miami, I live literally next to them. Essentially, we're like five buildings over. The average girl is not like you see. Maybe 5 to 10% of girls are like what they have on the show. But again, if you're
Mm.
not living in the real world, like, and you're spending all these time in these communities, so it is really important that you use the internet constructively. That means you're not part of any negative communities, you're part of positive communities. You're actually learning things, or at the very least, like indulging in entertainment doesn't, like, that's not detrimental to your mental well-being or not reinforcing any bad habits. So there's a wealth of things wealth of ways the internet can benefit you, and there's a wealth of ways the internet can harm you, like pornography. There's actually a really interesting story that, well, actually it's really sad, but also interesting, about this guy that spent $300,000 on a girl on a webcam. And this is not his money. He stole money from his brother, and his dad had like a lifetime savings. He used all the money the dad had in the savings, basically, to send to a girl that he's never met. And then
Ah.
finally his dad kicked him out, and then he went back and murdered his whole family the next day. Super duper sad shit like that. So that's
Oh.
that's an extreme example. That's not how it happens 99.9% of the time. But that's a dude who got fucked up by the internet, right?
Yeah.
Maybe he would have
And there's a
always
lot
done.
of, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of coaches also capitalizing on this shit too, man, which is sad, you know.
Yeah, like outrage and rage, like type of rage porn. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot of it. There's whole channels that are literally like dedicated to like dunking on modern women. That's the whole, it's all like outrage shit. The right does it, the left does it, everyone does it. But anyway, I just kind of wanted to throw that out there to answer your actual question, which was about some guys getting discouraged with online dating, and also women being discouraged. Yeah, so essentially, I would argue the vast majority of guys there who are not having good results with online dating, which will discourage them, is they're simply either their profile sucks, their texting sucks, or more likely both. Um, I've when you go on Reddit and you go under the Reddit Tinder profile section, 99% of profiles suck. Okay, that's a sample bias. Maybe the guys who are drawn to Reddit are, extra nerdy. But then I've done this experiment for like some of my videos. You create a profile as a girl, or you take a girl's profile and you swipe. 9 out of 10 profiles suck. And
Yeah.
some of these are good looking dudes with just really shitty profiles. They make the same mistakes over and over and over again. It gets really, really repetitive. Okay, you would think that, like, for example, people in my community, right? They watch my videos because they like me, their profiles will be better. Well, when I do these streams once in a blue moon where it's like rate my Tinder profile, so people email me their profile, I give them feedback. I would say over 80% of the profiles that people send me are below average, and about 50% suck. So maybe my audience is a little bit better than the average person, but still, like most people, vast majority of people, guys have shitty ass fucking profiles. So that's a big part of the issue. You have that profile, you're going to get much worse matches. You can get less quality and quantity. So you need to have a good profile. And I think I can get into the whole thing later if you want me, what actually makes a good profile. There's some misconceptions when it comes to that. But in terms of the other thing, in terms of like the girls having a bad experience, the girls are having different issues. Their issue is not a lack of matches. A girl can honestly have pretty much any type of photo. She does not need good photos. She can just has a few photos and she will get more than enough volume coming in. I've had at this point 3 female coaching clients out of like 5 years. So it's not many, but all 3 of them were very similar. They were but one of them was a above average looking girl and 2 of them were average looking girls. Had like thousands of matches in the queue. Their issues was like, it's overwhelming. I went on a few dates with different guys. They all kind of sucked. Now I don't know if it's worth my time. Maybe all the guys suck, blah, blah, blah. So the real big issue for girls is not knowing how to screen properly for what they're looking for. Right. So what I encourage girls, and I wouldn't necessarily encourage it with guys to this extent, is to be actually very explicit in your bio. You're getting like 500 matches a day anyway. Maybe you lose half of those matches by being super duper direct, but at least the matches you get are going to be guys who are more likely to be on the same page as you. So if you're looking for a relationship as a girl, say that in your bio. Be explicit about it, right? Be like, hey, looking for a relationship. If you're looking for a one night stand, I'm not your girl. Like, it's okay if you're getting that many matches to screen that aggressively. Also, knowing how to screen over text. So, like, again, that's the whole thing again, too, is like, why are girls struggling? But essentially, for guys, it's shitty profile, shitty texting. For girls, it's not knowing how to screen, getting decision overload where they have too many choices, and then eventually giving up really easily and not really like guys typically with dating apps will probably go a little bit longer before they give up. Girls, they get a few bad days, they're like, fuck this shit. I'll just try to meet a guy, at somebody's store. So it's different issues, but it's results in both parties, the majority of both men and women being dissatisfied with dating apps.
Yeah,
That's
man.
good stuff, man.
Yeah, for
Yeah, I
sure.
mean,
Like,
listen, I think this actually the funny thing is what I notice is that a lot of girls who actually write that, because sometimes I'll read their bio, but other times I won't, obviously, it's just too time consuming. But like when they write, a lot of them write, I'm not here for hookups, not friends
And they
with
want to hook
benefits.
up.
And they're
No,
it's the complete opposite. So like
no.
these are the girls that actually come over that's a green light. Like, oh fuck, she's just gonna fuck. Like that always happens, dude. It's
Always
crazy.
happens.
So
I
yeah,
it
totally
really
agree with
does.
you.
So
So
it's
that's why when
crazy,
I
man.
teach guys, when I'm teaching guys, and that's why my advice for men and women will be different, right? So when I teach a guy, I'm like, if a girl says not into one night stand, not into hookups, ignore that. Doesn't mean anything.
It
She
actually means the opposite, if anything. I would actually think it's like this
potentially,
girl's
I don't
yeah.
know. Yeah, I think it's like meaningless. But for a girl, I would, if I was coaching a girl, I would advise her not to play these games. So if you want to hook up, don't say like not looking for a hookup. Just be upfront. Like, hey, looking to have amazing sex with a guy I have chemistry with, or something like that. But if you're not looking for a hookup, then be explicit about that too. So the strategy is a little bit different for both parties.
Mm. Yeah, man, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Um, but like in terms of the strategies that are out there in the ether and what is commonly held online now in the culture for like men, right? What you said about women, beautiful, totally agree with that. But for dudes, let's assess the terrain in the space today. Yeah. So if we are young men coming up, 17, 18, going online, trying to find the truth, trying to find the Holy Grail, so to speak, we're gonna get hit with a lot of really
Bad info.
passionate, yeah, of course. And one of them is going to be that you have to be a fucking Chad. If you've got any hope at all, if you're going to have any sort of hope of success, you have to be a really good looking guy. Yeah, that's going to be out there. Another idea that you're going to be hit with is you have to be really successful. You have to have all the money in the world, all the clout, all the followers. And if you don't have these things, well, guess what? You're not going to get anywhere. Now, on on the idea of the mainstream advice that is now prevalent. What are
Just be
something?
yourself.
Yeah, just be confident, bro. You know what?
Just be
If
yourself.
Just be yourself.
if you're not Chad, it's fucking over for you, man.
So
Game
yeah,
over.
you got the black pill with the chat thing. You got the red pill with the money thing. Just focus on wealth. Focus on making six figures. The rest is easy. And then you have on the blue pill side useless things like just be yourself.
Yeah, that's this is the thing. This is the sort of shit that's out there. But these ideas, they're just manifestly not true. Like they're just not fucking true, right? And
They
this is the
don't
problem.
work.
The
That's
sad
that's
part is some of these guys say it with such conviction that like a lot of young men are very much they're convinced, man, that that's what it is. Like who have very little experience when they hear, I mean, like Fresh and Fit say like the best ways for mating selecting is to get good your resources and status. Like that's crazy. That they that their true colors come through that they don't even talk really about game. Like that it says it like you could see it a lot. He never
well, how can
mentions
they
game.
talk about something they don't even have?
Exactly. That's what I mean. It always comes through despite like, yeah, no, you need game. Nah, bro. You've had some success.
Yeah.
They're probably sleeping with a few girls now that they have status and they think they're going to be biased obviously towards that, you know what I mean? But it's said that like you obviously know from your story as well that you were broke or whatever or didn't have a lot of money and you were slaying girls like all the time. Like it's that mystery. Girls do not know. We don't have like our bank account tattooed on our forehead. Like it's all about perception, and which is what you hear generally. Like, oh, why are you getting a nice car to begin with or taking pictures, especially in this superficial world of online dating where like, oh, I'm going to take a nice picture around like a nice car or whatever. And it's all like girls have no idea. So on one side of their mouth, they're blasting them for being delusional and having no concept of money. So why would your advice be to build up your bank account? Like, I mean, to attract the opposite sex, it makes
Yeah,
no
the
sense.
majority of girls in reality. Now there are some girls that really do care about how much money you have, right? Those
Hmm.
we call them gold diggers. They're
Yeah.
not girls you want to be seeking out for anything
No.
more than a one
No.
night stand. The majority of girls, I don't like if you want to get like ask me for percentage, maybe in America, I don't know, like in the city like Miami, maybe 75%, 80%. In across all of America, probably like 90, 95%. The overwhelming majority of girls don't actually care how much money you have. What they do care about is whether you're someone who's actually pursuing something, that you're not a loser. So there's not really any, like, if you're someone, even when I was broke, it was like, you wouldn't look at me and think I'm a loser. I was like working up on my sales career, right? So that's what they care is that you're doing something. So they care a lot about your future potential, like where you're going. And it's also just like no one wants to date a loser. So that's kind of what it comes down to is that yeah, if you're like a guy who has no money, but you're like working on your master's degree or you're building a business, but it's like not going well so far and you're just starting off, like the vast majority of girls who are not gold diggers are gonna be totally fine with that, right? Unless you make it a big deal, it won't be a big deal. But yeah, I think I mean it's like the red pillars get way too hung up on money. And the other day, also, if you think about it, they like every guy started earning six figures, then six figures would no longer be impressive. Then the benchmark
Mm.
would be six figures. If every guy became part of the 1%, then it wouldn't be the 1% anymore. So the device doesn't scale well, right?
No.
Uh,
Yeah.
You
versus if
can't.
every
Me,
I was just gonna say if every guy learned game, well, there's no real issue there. It's just like girls and men would be happier. So the device doesn't
Yeah.
scale from a
Completely
macro.
agree. Completely agree with that, Alex. And that's a beautiful way that you just put it there. Um, like playing the status game, playing the wealth game, you're competing against like guys who've you're competing against some of the best in the world, right? And trying to play that game, you're always going to be there's always going to be someone with more wealth, more status, all that sort of shit. With game, competing with your unique individual energy and your vibe and your presence, like that's unique to you and what you can put out and what you can create through your mind. Yeah. And that's the stuff that hits raw emotion. And from what I've seen, right, and in my own journey, that's the most powerful thing that we actually have as individuals, like the ability to really connect with someone and generate those emotions. And that's fucking so powerful that it outweighs your bank balance, man. And this is what I like about,
For most girls, for a small percentage of girls, no, but for most girls, yes.
of course, and I would, yeah, of course, then there's some who have a different mentality. And I've been around some of those, and I didn't particularly enjoy being around them myself. I didn't necessarily like what they were bringing, what
Of
their
course,
energy was.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So that ain't really for me. So if it's someone who's a very materialistic person, they can just keep it moving, man, because it ain't gonna make me happy. So getting in the lane of like developing game and charisma and social skills, like I can tell you that's brought a lot of great things into my life. Like loads of really cool people, great experiences. So this, in my opinion, and it's similar, it sounds like it's what you kind of think as well. Game is the actual equalizer. That's the way that any guy, regardless of background, where you look, where you're from, like you can go out and obtain results by using game, right?
So the short answer is yes, but there's a more long, nuanced answer. Okay, well, let me start off with your question and then work backwards. So there are different starting points. Like a guy who's 5'4" is going to be at a massively lower starting point than a guy who's 6'2". A guy who's living in Pakistan is going to be a lower starting point than someone who's living in the U.S. A guy who is working 40, 60 hours a week is going to be at a lower starting point than someone who has his own business, has plenty of free time. So everyone, there are different starting points. And yes, it is absolutely 100% harder for some people and easier for other people. And that's going to be determined by things as like, your how much free time you have. That's a really important one, right?
Yeah.
Your looks level, right? That is going to play a role.
What about your logistics too? Like
Logistics. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say money so much unless you're literally like broke as fuck, but status, like if you have some level of status, that will give you a big edge. So yes, these are
Right.
all things, but yes, game. And when I say game, I don't mean like fancy lines. I mean like actually becoming confident, charismatic,
Yeah.
being able to read women, being able to develop really strong social intuition, being able to capitalize on little micro signals the girls give you. You know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Then and definitely take a guy who's, for example, I don't know, who's like 5'7" and middle class and get him equal to, if not better results than someone who's 6'2" and has $1 million. Right. So
Yeah.
it is an equalizer in that sense. But it also at the same time, there's different starting points. I also just want to quickly add a little nuance to what you said in the beginning. It
Sure.
is important to separate wealth from status because in terms of how they affect women, they're quite different. So wealth really is only going to basically seal a deal for a small percentage of women who are the gold diggers. The majority of women just they're not going to be that impressed by it, and they're not going to fuck you just because you're rich. The vast majority of girls won't fuck you because you're rich.
I think the
But
thing is they depict that the majority of women are into that stuff, and I think that's where the issue lies. It's not like if you're just a regular guy who tunes into YouTube and red pill content, you're going to be like, "What the fuck? Is this what's out in the real world?" Like if you have no experience, you're going to think that the majority of women, and then off you go. There you go. Trying to accumulate a ton, lots of wealth and shit like that. It's just that's the issue is that it's actually a very very small percentage of women. You just need real life experience and go out there and see for yourself.
yeah, the guys I know who fuck the most girls are not actually like rich. They're all worth less than $1 million. They're all
Mm-hmm.
like middle class ish, maybe upper middle class, because they spend vast majority of the time going out trying to fuck girls and learning game.
There you go.
The guys who become rich are the people who dedicate the majority of the time to growing their business.
Yeah.
So I have a lot less casual sex now that I have two businesses that I did when I was just starting out my first one. Obviously, my girlfriend's part of that equation as she is giving me the stink eye, but but giving me the love eye.
I'm just like looking at you. I mean, like, why do you have less sick now? I just wanted to know.
Because of you, babe, because you're my everything. Yeah, I know you're not cock blocking me. Anyway, so the point is that yeah, like, but that's a lot of it because I spend. I mean, there's other reasons, but a big part of it is because I spend a lot of time focused on my business, like running 2 businesses and doing podcasts and all that. Like I have like almost no time to like go on a date
That's what
at 8 p.m. So yeah, so like the guys
Yeah.
who are slaying the most are not the rich dudes. Those guys might be paying for the most prostitutes. When it comes to fucking girls, it's not going to be the ultra rich dudes, with the exceptions of like the Dan Bilzerian of the world. So here's again going back to the early point. Status is quite different for a lot of girls. Status, they might not just fuck you because of status, but it's going to really impress them. And I've seen this play out firsthand, like just kind of like interact. Like I wouldn't say I have like a lot of celebrity friends, but I've been in the same room as celebrities, and I've kind of seen how girls will gravitate towards status. Now, again, status by itself is not, unless it's like your A-list status, it's not really going to be enough to fully close the deal, but it could get you halfway through versus money isn't like that. So I do think status is something that can definitely help you significantly. Now, the vast majority of people will not and probably cannot have status. If you're an engineer, you're not going to get status. If you're working any traditional job, you will not get status. The only people who get status are people who do what we do, actors, maybe like the top of the line business owners like Elon Musk or whatever, those types of people. So status,
athletes,
yes,
probably
yeah,
athlete, yeah,
athletes, yeah.
athletes.
Status is something that's not available to 99% of men. So it's something that's silly for us to give advice on or talk about significantly in terms of like, hey man, you gotta get status because it's not available. It's like it's like you need to get this $10 million watch. It's like, okay, but no one can get it anyway, so what's the point of that? But I think the guys who, just as a kind of a mental side note, the beauty is the guys who have really good game and then develop status and they have some level of status with really good game. Those guys are going to crush everything else. There's not a lot of them, but there's a few of them. That guy Tony Tutuni, do you know who he is?
Yeah.
No.
Oh no, I don't know him. I've seen him on your show before. He seemed like a really cool dude.
Yeah, he's like he's like a Dan Bilzerian essentially junior. He has, if you look at his Instagram, it's just like the same shit as Dan Bilzerian, him on a yacht with 10 girls, like just all that same like raunchy millionaire fucking love hot girls thing. But he's also super chill, and you can tell that guy's confident. You can tell he's charismatic, even though he's like in his 50s. You can tell that he slays. And that combination of having like that level of status with good game, that will be the ultimate like fucking slaying combination. But for most guys, again, they're not going to get status, so just having game is going to be quite good. And then of course there's like local status, which is not significant as like overall status, but you can have status in some local things. Like for example, I have a friend who lives in Vegas, and he created his own, like, I think it's like a poly group or whatever for people to, like, I don't know, like fucking whatever, like groups. I don't know what they do. They fucking have like parties and then like people fuck, like swinger shit, I guess. But he's like the head of that group, and he actually gets a good amount of girls from that, right? But it's limited to that. Or like, let's say you're your club promoter, right? You might have status in that environment. So there's local status that is available to people. But yeah, I think the focus should always be game first.
Well, that's why game ties into status. Like, if you do develop good game, odds are that you're going to develop some local status, because that's what happened to me. Like, if you really have a good scene that you start to go to a lot, you start to get in with the bouncers, you start to get in with the, promoters, and you start to cut lines, you bring girls to parties. So they're tied together, at some level.
Yeah, game has a lot of like fringe benefits that most people don't think about. Like for example, like a few days ago, I paid my credit card thing late. I got a late fee. I got an interest purchase charge. It's people. It's really hard to get an interest purchase charge. Most people say, like, yeah, just fucking a little bit of like social engineering. Like 5 minutes later, like all that was waived. So stuff like that. Also, yeah, you become a lot better with networking. Definitely say I'm so much better. Like if I want to charm someone and like really network with them, I'm way more likely to do it now than I was 5 or 10 years ago. So you're right. There's all these fringe benefits to game.
For sure, bro. And also one thing I want to comment on is that, like, at the core of game, and like where it's deconstructed from at some level, it's kind of mimicking what like very high status people do and how they move through the world, how they
Mm,
speak, what they're to some. Do you see what I'm going with it? Where I'm going with
I
that, right? It's
sort
like,
of do, but a lot of these high status guys are so simpy. But yeah, I see where you're trying to go.
yeah, yeah. So like, well, I appreciate that there's many examples where they're not quite embodying what we want to embody. But like, I don't know, if we look at the example of maybe not a high status then, or someone who's just got a very great, excellent natural vibe, right?
Mhm.
They're doing a lot of these things correct. That's why we call them naturals. Their presence, their like sense of self, their sense of self-love, their boundaries, their like internal strength, and how they just move through the world, how effortlessly they can socialize with people. A guy like this, you want to know an example of one of the best that I've ever seen? This guy here, Brian. Oh yeah.
Mm.
He's an unbelievable natural, right? I just hung out with him not too long ago, and just seeing how he moves through the world, how he operates. Like if he's in a room, everyone's mood is just going up. Like he's just has this incredible vibe and energy that's coming out of him, which is what I was looking for, which is why I started doing this 3 years ago. And like reading about him back in the day, how he was just fucking being himself, walking around and just making these things happen so effortlessly, like pulling women, having sex with them without saying one word. Like he did
Mm.
that, yeah, plenty of shit. And it's because of how great he is socially, and he's just a hardcore fucking natural. And he's one of the examples where he also was really passionate about this field and like helping men and shit. So um, when I saw a few of these examples of like really great people with a vibe and charisma and social skills, like it made me truly want to cultivate that within myself. And going on that journey and developing that, like I've been very blown away by what it brought to my life. I look the same as I kind of did, but the more I developed my social skills, got laid a lot more, man. And it was just the case of just continuing with it and changing a few things. And the way I see it is like having really good social skills, what it communicates. I mean, there's piece of data that goes around that like when it comes to communication, 64% of it is like subconscious, it's subcommunication even. And it's the like non-verbals that are really communicating so much of our energy that kind of transmit. I'm an attractive person. Like I'm cool. I'm fun to be around. And there's things that are communicated to women that you know demonstrate that I want to make love to you. You know, I'm a sexual person. I'm here. We can do this, and it's going to be non-judgmental, and it's going to be very fun for both of us. We're on the same team. Like these things can kind of come off you. And like as I
That
was,
takes a lot of conviction. It takes a lot of conviction to believe that, to really believe that the nonverbal could really carry a lot of the interaction, but carry on, man, for sure. It's like
yeah, bro,
I wasn't
like
always like that, but I do think that the pickup actually opened the door to see some of my natural abilities come forth. So that's why I'm like, I give most of the credit to actually taking a boot camp and actually just having the green light to just go and approach a lot of women with a lot of guys supporting you. That was like the meat and potatoes of how it kind of like unlocked some of the maybe inherent natural ability I had when it came to that. But I would have never discovered that really if it wasn't for, pick up like saying go for it, you could do it.
The
mm,
guys who do the best, like the best, and they're like kind of unicorns or naturals who learn game, who learn
yeah,
actual game. They're so rare because naturals never have an incentive to. They're already getting late a decent amount. The guy that probably I learned from the most, if I had to pick one person, was my friend in college and a bit after college. I'll just call him S. I'll call him Sam. It's close enough to his name. Sam was a natural, like got laid at a young age, very like always the life of the party, very social. But at the same time, he was fascinated by pickup and game. He was the one that actually gave me the book, The Game, and literally guilted me into reading it. He was like, dude, you gotta read it. And then so he was super into pickup, while at the same time also being a natural. And that guy was overall, at least at the time, now he's married with the kids, he's doing all
mm,
that,
Mhm.
multimillionaire also.
Wow.
But at that time, he was the best that I've seen. Like if I take, uh, he was at that time better than I am now still. The
yeah,
the dude was just like, I saw him enter like social situations that would seem impossible. You got like one girl and six like humongous fucking dudes. They're like 6'4". And the guy was like 5'9", 5'10". He was like average height. And then like 5 minutes later, he had the girl isolate. Like just crazy ass fucking shit. Like one of the things is like really hard to pick up a waitress, right? Because they're like, fucking everyone's like pulling a waitress, like from a popular place. Like all this shit. And that guy was just fucking, yeah, he was so
Yeah.
fucking. So that's a really rare combination, but it's a very potent combination.
It is potentially the most potent that you can have out there. And then when we look at what's happening today, my next question is that, like, we're living in an era where people are quite socially disconnected and we're living on these screens a lot. A lot of our interaction is like through our screens. Like if we're in, I don't know, if Brian and I were in Miami right now, we could have this discussion in person. Like it'd be a very different experience. Like really, it would be because you get
Yep.
really grounded. You can have rapport. Like it's that really was the way it was. But now we've got a different type of culture, and it's producing almost like a different type of individual. So we see now a culture when it comes to like dating and the information that's out there that's really based on, as we were saying, a lot of it's like statistics of like get your money up, get your like stats up, get your like income up, level up, become an alpha boss. And at the same time, we're talking about how like women are entirely emotionally driven and aren't quite grounded in reality. And there's always like really negative fucking ideas that are out there, and there's embitterment and like um, a lot of these ideas that are being burrowed into these guys' heads. Like the question I have to you, man, is like what do you think is the effects of this culture on creating guys with good fucking social skills, man? Because like if you're hearing this shit that you have to be a total giga chad, if you have to be a millionaire, if you have to have all this shit going on for you, and then that women are not grounded in reality, like the cognitive dissonance to be successful with women and also carry all this load, I don't know how you would feasibly like, be able to develop game and really good social skills with that battle going on inside your head. Like,
Yeah.
what do you think, Alex, about how this culture affects men's social skills?
Yeah, I think we can narrow down more and just say Manosphere, right? Manosphere content.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the majority, like 90% plus of the device in the Manosphere sucks. And I would
Mhm.
say 50, 60% of it not only keeps you from improving, will actually take you in the opposite direction. Building resentment towards women. Like that's not good. You think a girl's gonna fuck you if she could tell that you fucking secretly dislike her? No. Like so, like for I would say, like again, I can't put a hard number on it, but for like half the guys in the Manosphere, they actually go in the wrong direction. And the other 40%, they stay the same. And maybe 10 or so percent are actually moving in the right direction. So fortunately, the first thing you described about the Giga Chat, that's the black pill. Fortunately, the black pill is not that big. Um, it may seem like it's overrepresented because those guys have no lives and they just fucking spam like comments and chat. But in
Yeah.
reality, Black Pill, if you look at the overall, like, what people watch in Master, it's not that big. And that's why even though it's not that big, I've tried really hard to push back against like some of these ideas. And the best way to push back against it is with proof. So, for example, I got a guy who's 5'3", did a video of him picking up girls. The instant cope was like, yeah, bro, but he just got their number. Like they probably all ghosted him. Did a part two, showed him getting girl's number, showed the whole text conversation, showed them out on a date. Yeah, but like she was probably like, I don't know, maybe she hit her head. Like there's always an excuse, but for some people it might reach them. Talked about constantly how I used to get more girls, when I didn't have money, when I was in credit card debt, lived in a shitty fucking apartment with 10 other people, brought people on to reinforce that. So yeah, I mean, like, but at the end of the day, only some people are willing to listen. Unfortunately, a lot of people, what they hear, the black pill or red pill becomes part of their identity. They're kind of like
Yeah.
religion. And that point, or like politics, right? At that point, you're just when you're giving them a counter perspective, it feels like to them, it feels like you're literally attacking their identity. Like you're
Yeah.
saying, like what your identity is wrong, and then they just get defensive, right? So yeah, you are right about that, and it is very sad. And also another thing that's really sad is while the black pill is not that big, the red pill has become huge. And the red pill, like if you look at what people are actually watching the Manosphere, sure, you guys get views, I get a bit more views, but we're getting a small piece of the puzzle of the pie. Like all the dating coaches, all the people who give like practical dating advice and like actually shit that will help you are probably less than 10% of the total watch content in the Manosphere. And most of it is like fucking fresh and fit, dumb 304 gets kicked out, bimbo gets ducked on, why you need to get your money up, like it's like that. It's
You
and
need to get your money up after being told that women have no concept of money. Make that make sense, man. I don't fucking get that shit. That's
So,
crazy.
well, they believe that actually women only care about money, or the black pillars believe that women only care about looks, or at least that's like the majority of what they care. So they're operating on a false set of premises, and they don't have real life experiences because they don't actually go out and talk to girls. So it's just like, oh, I guess this is what the case is, right? For someone like us, because we have a lot of real life experience, when we hear like one of these ideas, we're like, wait, this doesn't match up with like what we've actually experienced. So therefore, it's probably garbage, right? But for someone who has no real life experience, or close to none, then like, it's like, oh, I trust this guy. He seems interesting.
Yep.
I like the fact that he kicked out this random bimbo. I kind of hate women too. So yeah, I think he must be telling the truth. So
And
it
I
is
got to
really
give it to him, man. Some of these guys speak with such conviction. You know what I mean? And it makes a young guy who doesn't have a life experience, like he's going to buy into that. That's why I think you see some of these platforms blow up, man. Because if you're saying something with that much conviction, if you just have to listen to it carefully, and you'll see all the contradictions and everything. But a lot of guys are buying into it. It's easy, and there's really nowhere else to turn. Yes, we have some
well,
practical pickup advice, but by and large, it's mostly just red pill rage and all this shit.
so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, there was like fucking Ted Bundy spoke with conviction at his when he did his own defense. A lot of
Fuck.
people who have bad, I'm not equating them to Ted Bundy by any stretch, right?
It's
Analogy.
okay. It's all good. You can do it. You can do it. You
Uh,
can do it.
No, I want to be clear because I'm not trying to like stigmatize red
Nah.
pillars. There's something inherently wrong with them, right? It's just that, like, like a lot of people speak with conviction who have horrible ideas. Hitler spoke with
Right.
conviction. Mussolini spoke with conviction. Like there's a lot of fucking people. Trump speaks with conviction. There's a lot of people who speak with conviction who are way off. So that doesn't really like, yeah, I understand how people, how that increases the likelihood some will fall for that, but just for the
Yeah.
viewers, don't be tricked by someone just because it seems like they have conviction. Are their ideas actually go out in the real world and test it? Are what they saying makes sense? Like, look, if you test my advice and it's not working, then email me or just fucking move on and follow someone else's advice, right? I mean, I would argue that I think all my advice works to some extent or another. But again, if you're like not you tested it correctly, it didn't work, then yeah, follow someone else, then I guess it didn't pass the litmus test. Not that that would ever happen, obviously, but that's kind of the point. In terms of the second thing you said, where else to turn? Well, I would argue our content and content like ours. I mean, we're not
Oh,
alone.
for sure.
There's people like Austin Summers. There's people like Gabriel from Surgical Pickup. I mean, I could go
Yep.
on and on of people whose opinions I value and who I think have a lot of value to offer, but there are alternatives. The problem is that the alternatives require you to do a lot of work. So
Hmm.
I'm not as familiar with your guys' content, but I'm assuming it's somewhat similar to what I say, where it's like, hey, you're not gonna just get good at game in like a day or a week. Just buying one product or learning a few lines isn't gonna do it. It's a long, arduous, and painful process. Now, what a coach can do or good product can do is speed up the learning curve and make it so instead of it lasting 2 years, it lasts 6 months. That's what a good product or good dating coach can do. Maybe 4 months, right? But it cannot. There's no instant. That's why I've never been a fan of the whole bootcamp concept. Like 3 days, we transform. Like you can't transform someone's dating life in 3 days. Like minimum month it would take for any kind of substantial change. So,
Yeah, but it can open the floodgates to something good. I think that's what it started with me. I had no
sure.
idea that I could even get like 6 to 10 numbers over the course of a weekend, speak to like 50 girls. You could get like this, you can get some momentum, and it does need some proper aftercare, but I'm a big
Yeah.
proponent of it if it's because it could really get get the wheels rolling for sure in the right direction.
I'll grant you that it can absolutely it can show you what's possible and can get the ball rolling, but there's still going to be, you're not going to go from no, someone who gets no results to someone's crushing it with any kind of boot camp, no matter how good the fucking, even if you have Jesus Christ as the fucking coach with like fucking what's that guy that was fucking a lot of girls, Casanova as the other coach, is still not going to happen. But I would say the reason that our type of content, it may seem like I'm just trying to like make excuses or whatever, but really this is what I truly believe, is that it's less sexy. People like instant solutions. Like if I say like something like, hey, use this one pickup line and you will get 5x more girls. That's going to get me way more sales than basically the message I'm pushing now. Like, hey, you have to learn text game. There's little things you can do here and there, but you have to actually improve. You have to practice. Like, that's not sexy. But if we like even like kind of like zoom out a little bit more, well, what's like what does the red pill do? Well, they put the blame on the women, right? So it's like, hey, actually, it's not your fault that you're not getting laid. It's all these women. All these women, they just want money. So get your money up, but it's the woman, right? And that's also quite sexy. It's like, hey, I don't have to do any work. I'm not at fault. Like, it's not me. Versus what we're talking about, or at the very least, I think you guys are the same, is responsibility. It's like, hey, actually, there's a lot of things you can improve on. So you do have to take massive responsibility and work on these things. It's a lot of work. It's not easy. And that's a lot less sexy. And that's why I think ultimately, in addition to the way the algorithm works, in addition to people just wanting entertainment, is why content like ours will never be dominantly, the main thing in the manosphere. It just won't. No matter how good of videos we make, we'll still be appealing to a niche percentage of the audience who actually wants to take action and improve their lives. And that's not the majority of people in the manosphere.
That's well said, man. And one of the big red flags, just for the audience out there, like, with any advice, if someone is not mentioning logistics at all, or like location, a lot of people just assume that or overlook that. That's like the prerequisite to any of this stuff. In order to put or implement any of this stuff, you need to be in a good location. Like you need to be around, you need to be in warm spaces with other women. Like you need that shit. And a lot of people overlook that. They're like, that's what you said. Like it's a sexy thing to sell. If you're like, if you take my course or you buy something, like you'll get laid instantly, no matter what. Like, what are you talking about? You're not going to have good, like, you're not going to get a lot of good results in the Midwest, like in some small town in the Midwest, like but that's a big commitment. If they say like, you need to move to a big city in order to get results, then it's a little bit more, then it's like, all right, that's the starting point for me to even buy your course and learn your strategies and techniques. But that needs to be done. Like you need to do it. And a lot of guys
partially agree and partially disagree.
Cities.
I do think that logistics are very important and can definitely make a huge difference in your results. But that's not to say you can't get some level of results living in a small city, or you can live in with your parents if they're cool with you. Like, there's a period where every summer, essentially for a period of time, I would go home and stay with my mom for the summer. And then like I would go back to Cal in the winter. And I was fucking chicks then, at that point. Not as many as I was living out.
Yeah, my house was like a primary place for a while, man. It was golden.
And my mom lives in like relatively rural Jersey. I mean, obviously I had to drive out further, I had to send my Tinder, but so you can get laid if you really know what you're doing in the rural areas. But yes, it's going to be less. It's going to be harder, and it's going to be more work, and the volume and potential quality will be lower. So I'll grant you that.
Yeah, for sure, bro. And another thing I want to touch on is just one comment about like boot camps and whatnot. We totally actually agree with this. Transformation happens over time. It happens when people are genuinely invested in you and your growth and can ingrain ideas into your psyche. There's a model where you can do a boot camp and have ongoing aftercare, which is kind of like what I would lean towards and what I would develop. Um, Certainly what me and Brian are trying to create is something where there is like lifelong aftercare, monthly calls, like in-depth, deep men's work that continues. There's full accountability. These sorts of things changed my own life. I ratified it with hundreds of other men that did this as a part of a community, literally for years, just try and contribute. And there's ways you can really make these things work. A lot of my like huge growth came when I actually went and trained. I mean, I know a lot of like fucking really high level dudes in this space, right? Who helped me, right? I went and lived with them for a bit, and I continued to work and kept doing like monthly calls and whatnot. And
Mm,
I'm in a fucking very favorable position now. There's ways you can make it work, but this is a
mm,
process. This is a
mm,
process, and it happens over time. Your beliefs change. You know, different things are ingrained into your psyche, which is where I want to ask you now about
mm.
um what you think are favorable beliefs men need to hold with women to be successful, right? I want to ask you that, but I'm going to preface this with building on some of the things that you previously said, which I find very interesting. So you highlighted a few things around like the red pill culture and how you said almost it's a seductive thing for a man because it absolves him of responsibility. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, his
Yep.
failures are in fact, well, this is the way modern woman is now. It's not your fault, and so on. Okay. So it's a seducing thing that almost allows you to protect your ego and your identity. But with that comes some really corrosive beliefs that you are all at the same time accepting by suggesting that this is true about women, this is true about other beings in this world, right? Part of you is poisoning yourself to believe these ugly things about the world because that is what they are. And I know because I was there and I was struggling with that, right? And it took getting mentorship, getting seeing like really great role models. Like
Mm.
Scott is one of the really big thing people I learned a lot from, man. I studied him for he wasn't even on the scene, but I just read and watched his stuff and like listened to podcasts with Chris. The beliefs these men had are what I really wanted to embody. Like how they see people, how they see the world is why they're so successful. Um, and I I grappled with that whilst I was taking action, Alex. I grappled with that whilst approaching every day. Like I did so many, man, for years. Whilst those things were in my head, it was hard for me to get results. It was like tough to really build connections and convert. But of course, I healed. I kept doing the work. I kept being consistent, and then I changed my beliefs. Yeah. So I see the world as abundant. I think you can make as much money as you want. I think you can literally achieve whatever you want. You can have amazing times with women. I get fucking laid plenty, buddy. I've got all sorts of shit going on in my life. I just don't have those like horrible burning issues now. And it came really when the deeper parts of me absorbed better beliefs and like really like started to properly enjoy being around women, dude. Actually like talking to them. Fully enjoy talking to men and women alike because I changed how I see the world.
Mm.
Question for you then is and also like your commentary on like navigating the SMP with some of those sort of red pill beliefs. I'd like you to comment on
Sorry, what
y-
does
y-
SMP mean?
sexual marketplace.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Navigating the sexual marketplace with some like of the challenger beliefs that are around today. And then I'd also like you to comment on how would you advise someone to actually see men and women and what are
Oh,
some
okay. Lots of questions. So if I
sure.
I'll try to go through them one at a time, and if I forget anything,
Yeah.
just me. Okay, let's start off with the first thing you said about what are the beliefs men should hold to be successful women. Now, I think at the very crux of it, it comes down to whether you have a fixed mindset or growth mindset. There's a lot of good books on this, and I'm not going to be able to do justice. But in essence, a fixed mindset, it's like, hey, I suck with girls. Hey, I'm not good at sales. Hey, I'm not good at this, and that's just what it is. That's a fixed mindset. A growth mindset is, hey, I'm not good with girls, but I can become good with girls. Hey, I'm not good at sales, but I can become. So it's basically you believe that you can actually improve at something that you're not good at or that you're average at. And some people naturally have a fixed mindset. I would argue that most people have a fixed mindset, and some people have a growth mindset. That in of itself, just forget everything else. That is huge because if you believe that, like, hey, I suck with girls, that's it is what it is. It's like, hey, I'm white. I'll never become black. It's like, hey, I'm 5'11". I'll never be 6'2", right? Like it's like why would you be working hard if you don't believe it's going to work anyway? So it's
Yeah.
really important to have that growth mindset. Now, one of these things, again, with everything we're talking about, it's easier said than done. I can tell you that you should have a growth mindset, but that doesn't convince your subconscious. I think what convinces your subconscious is proof of concept. So if you see someone, for example, who you like, and you see them go from sucking to not sucking to being quite good, right? That kind of reinforces that. And I think also, really, if for yourself, if you go from, like, for example, being sucky at sales to becoming average at sales, like, wait, hang on, like, actually, you know, it means I can grow these things, and then that should cross over to other territory categories. Now, so with the growth mindset thing aside, which is very, very important to have, and there's a lot of really good books on this, again, that, like, you know, I won't be able to do them justice. In terms of the beliefs you should have to be successful with women, okay, I'm gonna just spitball here. I would say one is that you should have above average or high self-esteem, not ego, but self-esteem. You should think that you should not think like, oh yeah, you know, I'm whatever. Doesn't mean you should be delusional. It's also some people become delusional. But you should have like a high self-esteem. It's like, fuck yeah, like, yeah, of course, I'm awesome. Girls would be, yeah, girls would be lucky to have me. Like, why? So like, if you get rejected by a girl and you have high self-esteem, you're not going to get like all beat up. You're going to be like, okay, her loss, right? It's just going to roll over your shoulders, right? Versus you have a low self-esteem, you're going to be like, oh, there we go. Another girl who rejected me. No one likes me. So I do think it's important to build up high self-esteem. Again, easier said than done. And we can go more in depth on these later if you want, but I'm just going to.
That's where a wingman actually would really help out tremendously. Like having somebody like that you can go out with really helps that whole problem big time. Because if you're stuck in your head and you just got blown out by like 10 girls in a row, you could really get in a bad place. You know what I mean? That's where someone just keeps you going a little bit, and you just need some positive reinforcement.
But if it's a good wingman, which not all are, if it's someone that's going to actually motivate you and do the things you said, yes. But there's a lot of wingmen where they will just spend one of them will get rejected and they spend 2 hours drinking and complaining and like whining.
Yeah, for sure. That could be a very long process. We've talked about that in the past, where you can have to go through maybe 5 to 10 different guys. I mean, it could be a long process before you find someone who's solid.
Yeah. But okay, so going back to the other beliefs that you should have. I think another one is that I'm attractive to women. And I'm not talking about physically, I'm talking about overall. Like, yeah, I'm a good catch. I'm, you know, like, again, it doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm the ultimate prize, but yeah, I'm a really good catch, right? That's a really good belief to have. Even if you're not correct, like even if you're like broke and you're like not that attractive, if you believe that you're like a really good catch, then you will have better results with women. There was an interesting study that was done that showed there was a big difference in terms of the quality of the women and quantity of the guys were dating. The guys who believed that they were attractive, right? Even if they weren't attractive. So, okay, let me explain this. They looked at guys who were similar level of attractiveness as rated by girls. The guys who believed that they were not that attractive did significantly worse than the guys who believed they were attractive. All other factors being the same. They had the same level of attractiveness, but yet the guys who believed that they were attractive did much better. So there's a lot to be said for that. It's almost gives you this like good sense of entitlement where you feel like, yeah, like, wait, what? I am entitled to, at the very least, shoot my shot with a girl. I think number 3 is not caring what other people think. And that's, again, easier said than done, but you really need to not care what people think if you want to be successful at cold approach. And that comes into being able to endure rejection and not let it affect you. I know many people, they get rejected a few times. They look like they're just like fucking zombies. Their brain is done, right?
Yep.
Now look, I mean, even I probably have my limit. Maybe if I go out, get rejected 100, 1,000 times, maybe that'll kind of cause me a state crash. But number of rejections I have to go through will be pretty high, and I'll rebound literally like the next day. So, but for some people, it's just like they're fucking done for a month. So being able to handle a rejection, which goes back into the other ones I was thinking, which is thinking that, you know, you're quite the catch, having high self-esteem. And also, I think another thing is not judging yourself and your self-worth based on interactions with a girl or just other people. The way you view yourself shouldn't change based on what some random girl said. Like, I'll quite often, one of the things I do is I'll just show my rejection videos as well, right?
Yeah, I do that.
Some random like weirdo black girl will be like, you got rejected, you must feel like shit. I'm like, no, I don't care. It doesn't affect me. Like, I just don't care. Like, it's some random girl. Why would I care about her opinion? But a lot of people really do care about other people's opinions, right? That's why cyberbullying is like actually causing some people to kill themselves. I would say those are a good starting point for beliefs you should have. Oh, another one. Women, generally speaking, love sex. Doesn't mean women love casual sex, but women in general love sex. This whole idea that in the red pill community, I see that women just have sex, for the guy's sake. They don't really like sex as much as
Right.
men. That like really like the value proposition is she's giving you sex and you're giving her this. Women love sex as much, if not more than men, if you're good in bed. Every single girl I have ever dated has wanted to fuck more than me. Every single one. Like
Yeah.
in the porno, who's screaming, the guy or the girl? Like women can have multiple orgasms. I mean, like I can go for days, but yeah, women love sex as much, if not more than men. But again, for women, they're a little bit more selective about who they sleep with, right? So that's a good belief to have, because if you believe that women don't really like sex and she's only doing it to please you, then when you're escalating, you're gonna feel like a little shitty about it. It's like, oh fuck, like I don't know, she's doing something that she doesn't want to do, right? That's a wrong belief. You need to scrap
And
that out.
the sad part about that, Alex, is that's basically the narrative that you hear day in and day out, like on this on these channels. You know what I mean? It's crazy that if you just absorb that, the overall feel about it and what you hear, it's like, oh my god, that's what you're gonna be led to believe. You're gonna be like, holy shit, it's dramatized. It's crazy, man. So
Yeah.
I would also just add one more thing, and I can go for days, but one more. Women, generally speaking, most women like masculine dominant men. And again, the word dominant, people get confused. It means like, oh yeah, be here at 7 p.m. You're gonna get a tuna fish sandwich, bitch. Like that's not
Uh-huh.
really what dominant means. But if you're like confident, you're masculine, and you're dominant in the bedroom, like really one of the biggest complaints women have when it comes to like their past hookups or whatever is that, yeah, the guy just like, I like a guy who takes charge. I like a guy, when it comes to like sex at least, who's just going to take charge. He's just going to have his way with me. I don't want to have to do like half the work when it comes to sex, right? That's
Mm.
I've heard this theme a million times. I've heard so many girls like I've hooked up with be like, wow, like, you know what I really like about fucking you is just you just fucking dominate me. You're just take charge. I just get to fucking enjoy my feminine submissive self. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think those are good starting points for beliefs you should have. What was the second question that you had?
Yeah. So the other question I was trying to get at, right? Those are fucking awesome answers, by the way, Alex. There's great shit there. But the other one I was getting at was like, I want to understand how beliefs affect like vibe and interpersonal energy. Yeah, I
Mm,
want to get your opinion on that. Because I think I understand your view from listening to previous answers that you gave, but I want to understand how like the wrong belief, say someone doesn't have the beliefs that you just ingrained there, right? That you just talked about there. Say they've absorbed a lot of like angry red pill content, right? Um, I want to understand how do you think that affects people's like vibe, interpersonal energy? How do they come across to women?
oh,
Like,
significantly,
yeah, go
massive.
ahead.
Absolutely. There's some massive, depends on how many beliefs you have, what the beliefs are, how deeply you hold them, but it's a massive difference on your vibe, on your demeanor. And yeah, that shit will like if you're like the typical, okay, let's say you're a typical red pillar, or like a hardcore red pillar. You believe modern women suck. They're all just looking for money. They're all 304s. They're all just fucking, countless guys, which by the way isn't even true. Like we've done street interviews in Miami. When you look at studies, the average girl has a body count of like 5 or 6. It's like it's really there's a small percentage of girls, like less than 5%, that are quite promiscuous. The majority of girls are like their body count. They've had a few boyfriends, maybe one
Yeah.
stand. They don't have body counts even in double digits. That's just
Oh,
but again, like these guys are living in an echo chamber. So you believe all these girls are sluts, they're not reliable, they're all very superficial.
mm,
You have a very small chance of actually hooking up with that girl that you want to date with, because all of that is going to resonate through. Like I can
yeah,
even when I meet someone and they're like, they're bitter and resentful towards women, I can tell that pretty fast. It kind
yeah.
of they might not have to
yeah,
say explicit, but just kind of, flows through. I don't know. You can just feel the vibe,
You
just kind of the
can.
way they word certain things. And women are much more acute at picking up on vibes and social cues than men are. Women are much more astute at doing that. So yeah, like girls will pick up on that. It's going to be very unattractive. That's like going to be a deep hole that you've dug yourself into. And then what can happen is it becomes a reinforcing cycle because you're so like the girl just doesn't like your vibe. It seems like you're so resentful towards women. You have a lot of trauma towards that. So the girl politely rejects you. And then what do you do in your mind? You're like, it's because I wasn't rich enough. It's because she's a day with a chat. It's because she's too much of a 304. And then you just delude yourself into reinforcing your already shitty ideas. And then it just becomes this endless cycle. It's like a vicious cycle. And just a lot of people really lack self-awareness. So they're not like looking at it like we would be like, dude, like the problem is your vibe. The problem is the beliefs you have. Like it's really obvious that you're bitter towards women, that you don't think that they're like even, worth being in a relationship in, right? Yeah, she could pick up on that, and that was unattractive to her. No, it's because my jawline is slightly flawed, or blah, 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 blah. Just as like a quick anecdote, there was this guy, I won't mention his name because I don't want to give him any free cloud, but essentially this guy, I've debated with him a bunch of times, but his story is so bizarre. So he told me he went on like 20 or 25 or 30, between 20 and 30 Tinder dates. He had sex with 0 of them. And so what's the obvious reason when you think about it? His game sucks, right?
Yeah.
If you got a girl on a date, she generally finds you attractive enough. Like your game sucks if you can't close. Like, look, no one closes all their dates, but if you go on 20 dates and you close zero, your game sucks. That's not his interpretation. He actually absolutely disagrees with my interpretation. His interpretation is he was attractive enough to get the date, but the girls, when it comes to fucking, want someone who's more attractive than him. So therefore, the problem was his looks.
Yeah, I'm going to comment on that, Alex, because this is crazy that you raised that. I was in that position at one point. Scotty knows. Like, when I first signed up with my coach, which was Andy, right? You know Andy. Like the first, like, oh goodness, man, I had a lot of anxiety. Like, I was going on dates feeling physically sick and shit. Yeah, like my stomach was churning. Like, I was vibrating it was fucked up, right? Because that's the whole thing. But I actually went on like I think 20, 30 as well, and I didn't get laid. And in that case, it was just like exposure therapy. I was fucking pass out nervous. You know what I mean? I had to heal. Um, but then it was the same guy who then got laid, like looking the same. No looks changed, man. Exact same. But then, got friends with benefits, was getting like lays and whatnot. And then the times where I like improved my actual game and social skills and did loads of approaches and was killing it. Um, those are the times where it was night and day with what happened with my sex life because I'd improved my little subtle social calibrations by just taking loads of action in some parts of my journey. And then I had like one where I just like banged 8 girls in like a few week period. And it was all just changes in like game and social skills and sharpening the sword, as Scotty says. And the looks were exactly static; they didn't change. It was just purely what's going on in here, what's going on, the happiness inside, the sense of self, the sense of warmth for other humans, like everyone I interact with, from people who I just chat to in the street or like everything, right? So yeah, that's an interesting example. And in my
That's
own
a part
story,
of pre-selection too. Like a lot of people don't touch on that. Like when you're getting some positive feedback and you're getting numbers, you're getting attraction from girls, immediately like going forward, your next couple sets, you're just going to be more magnetic. Girls will be like a little bit more receptive to you. So that's how quickly pre-selection could even happen. It's not like this big thing that people, claim it to be. You immediately get selected once you just start to get some attraction from girls back and forth. That's how quickly it could happen.
Yeah,
for sure.
momentum is powerful. I will definitely say that. Going back to what you were saying, Ravi, yeah, I mean, just to kind of add on, I mean, I do definitely think there's a value in looks maxing. Like, I'm not
Yeah,
talking about
I did it. Yeah.
go to the gym, get good, go to a good barber. Just going to a good barber and getting a really good haircut and beard trim
Yeah.
will make a massive difference.
Yeah.
Getting good style, all of that is great. Like you should do that at the same time as you're learning the game. But to focus on just that and forget about the game aspect is like trying to learn weight training and taking the protein powder and the pre-workout, but not actually lifting any weights. It's like, dude, you're missing the main part. Like that's the real thing.
That's
Um,
great. That's great.
yeah. I mean, like, I think a lot of these things are, again, easier said than done. But it starts with number one, recognizing the issue is. And yeah, like what women want a lot, at least on a first date, they want to feel good emotions. They want to, if you can make a girl feel good emotions, that's like
Mhm.
half the battle. And then after
Course.
that, like closing and dealing with logistics and overcoming any potential concerns and building comfort. But really, like, and you need to, you're not going to make the girl feel good emotions by logically talking about how much money you have, traveled. That's not going to be a logical thing. It's going to be, you're going to have to relate to her on an emotional level. I could also go into more about the difference between connection game and attraction game. That's a little bit more of like a nuanced, I think, somewhat unrelated topic. But yeah, I mean, I think that's really like you need to, like, a lot of these rich guys are just like super boring. I've gone
Mm.
on dates with girls who've also gone on dates with millionaires, right?
Yeah.
And like they'll say, like, they'll be like, yeah, this guy has a shitload of money. He's so fucking boring. All he does is talk about like his fucking money or the car or fucking just ask me random boring questions. Like it's like so fucking boring. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, he has money, he has a nice car, but it's like, fuck, I feel so bored after 30 minutes. So yeah, I mean,
The
I think
pickup community is littered with rich guys. So how would we even have a business? You know what I mean? Most of these guys have come from a lot of money.
wait, really? I would disagree with that. I think most guys in the pick community are broke.
No. I mean, like clients and people that you've worked with. They usually come to me with a lot of money. How many rich guys have you trained? It's a very neat, it's an
Oh,
expensive
I
thing
see
to.
what you're saying.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The pickup community is
Yeah,
littered with rich guys. I don't mean like
yeah,
people doing it, but
yeah. I've trained. Yeah, I would say I wouldn't say it's in the majority, but there's been a good amount. I mean, I've trained. I trained a Grammy Award winning musician. I've trained a dude in UAE, United Arab Emirates, who was like the right hand man to like the fucking sheikh or whatever.
Oh,
He
goddamn.
he, he wouldn't really like tell me his exact role in the government. You knew aside, but this dude had like fucking money to the. He
Mm.
literally like I think at the time I was charging like $150 an hour for coaching. He's like, okay, Alex, I'm gonna send you over 2,000. I was like, well, hang on, dude. Like, I only charge 150. He's like, yeah, just I'll send you 2,000, and then if I need you, I can call you a second time. I'm like, okay, sure.
dude, I had the same exact thing happen to me too. I like had a low number. The guy was like, "Yo, what are you talking about?" He's like, "I'm giving you 3,500." I'm like, "What? I don't charge there." I'm like, he's like, "I'm not paying you any lower than this." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I would disagree with that, man. I think the majority of my clients or our clients would be definitely guys who are coming from a lot of money. I mean, because this shit's not. It's usually not that cheap, you know." But
Well, maybe we have a little bit of a different sample.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much you
yeah,
guys
that's true.
your programs, but uh yeah, I mean, I would say that most of the actual like the coaching clients, the guys I talk to on the phone, they're definitely not broke because then they couldn't afford the coaching. They're like
Yeah.
upper middle class-ish or middle class-ish, and some of them are rich. I've had rich dudes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, it's a kind of irrelevant side point.
Alex, you've talked a lot about a lot of different factors. Yeah, you're quite an interesting dude because your technical knowledge of game solid, your awareness of different dynamics absolutely solid, your evolution, your knowledge of the nature of this space, the different facets of it, right? Very interesting. So I got a question for you in terms of what do you identify as, yeah, at your core? Like, how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as a PUA, dating coach, men's coach, self-improvement coach? What really influences your thinking, and how can
I'm
we?
I'm a I'm a straight white male. No, I'm just I try not to. Okay, the short answer is probably PUA.
Yeah,
Uh,
okay.
the longer answer is I try not to, and I advise other people not to identify with a specific niche in the community because that kind of boxes you in. And it's like, oh, I have to agree with all these ideas. What my advice is, uh, look at the stuff that seems interesting to you and test it and go with what makes sense. Maybe some of the red pill ideas will make sense for you. They're not wrong about everything. They're just wrong about some things, right? Black pill, probably stay away from. But aside from that, yeah, I think there's well, actually,
Yeah,
even like some black pillars give decent
yeah, they
like
do actually, bro. Yeah, there's some
there's
like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So even that, like, like just fucking cherry pick. But so I like, yeah, if you really identify as like I'm a red pillar, then you're gonna shut your brain off to everything other than that. I mean, you see this
Yep.
with politics, see this with everything. And so I don't identify as like a Democrat or Republican. Generally speaking, I prefer more liberal policies or libertarian policies, some between those two. But I won't identify as like a libertarian or liberal unless I'm like, like someone really wants to know if I have to pick one gun to the head. Because, like I look at like the issues. So it's the same thing here. But yeah, to answer your question, the short answer is probably PUA, although I find that word is kind of cringe nowadays. So if girls ask me, I say sex and dating coach.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. Okay, so you identify as PUA, interesting. So like,
If I have
um,
to, but
of course,
I try not to
I
identify.
yeah, you gave a lot of nuance, and I understand where you come in, and I understand the overall like framing. But like, clearly you. I mean, I've listened to your journey. I know that you came from improving your social skills, like actually going out there doing this shit, in the real world, and developing your core, which is what makes you attracted to women, right? And so you've went through this scene, you've actually went through the evolution of it, right? And you've seen the changes. And this is why the next question I have is like, do you think the PUA scene is like dead now?
I don't think it's dead. I think it's gotten worse though. Um,
Hmm.
I don't think it's dead because there's like my channel, Marcus's channel, your guys' channel, Austin's channel. There's a lot of, like at least a dozen solid PUA, coaches that give good advice, who have communities, who have a following. So it's not dead. It's just, it doesn't have as much hype as after, like, look, the book, The Game coming out drew a lot of attention to the PUA space. It
Mm.
was like really unknown before that. And the book, The Game, really pushed it to the forefront. But that book came out a while ago, right? And
Yeah,
unless there's some more books that come out about this that are popular, it's not going to be as relevant. Versus the red pill space, we had Andrew Tate going viral with all that shit. So that gave a
Mm.
lot of attention to the red pill space. Plus, also Fresh and Fit has been making some waves on their own, right? To give them credit,
Mm.
whatever podcast. So yeah, there's no one in the PUA side that's getting the level of views and traction as like the top guys in the red pill space. It's not even close for the reasons I mentioned earlier. Uh, but I don't think it's dead. I do think it's gotten worse. I think that I mean, it depends on how far back we go. I got into the PUA space 2016 or so. And around, wait, no, it was earlier. It was 2012, 2014,
Mm.
2014, I got to the PUA space. Yeah, 2000, actually 2013, honestly. Sorry, I just keep changing. But 2013, I got into the PUA space. And at that time, it felt like much more of like a tight-knit community. Now, RSD was dominating the PUA space back then, but this is when RSD was actually pretty based. Like, again,
Mm,
there's things they were saying that they're wrong about. I recognize that now.
Yeah,
But overall, a lot of their advice was pretty solid. Like, again, some things they were completely wrong about.
yeah,
And also they caused a lot of problems by saying things like looks don't matter at all.
exactly. Yeah,
And
yeah.
that caused a
yeah.
pushback, right? And then all these people like, wait, I think looks matter a bit. And it's like, well, let's go to the other extreme. Looks are the only things that matter. So don't get me
Mm.
wrong. I have so many criticism of RSD circa 2014 or whatever, but they had these RSD inner circles. So people were networking and it was a positive space that you can't deny that.
Yeah,
Those groups, the message, it was positive message. It was like, hey, here's how you get good at game. We can say that some of the advice they gave you was wrong, right? And self-serving, but it was positive, right? You don't really see that as much anymore. Now RSD is like completely gone. They're fucking doing self-improve. No one knows, no one gives a shit about RSD anymore. So then you have a bunch of these other players in the space, and some of them, like us, are giving good advice and creating good communities. But other ones, are not. Like you also see, some like negative communities that are like borderline pickups ish slash, like verging on red pill. So in some ways, RSD having a dominance of the space around 2014 back the way they were, or maybe it was just a more positive time to be on the internet. Maybe just
Yeah.
like people were a bit different back then. The internet was more positive. That could actually be another explanation. Maybe it had nothing to do with RSD. But the point is, it was much more positive. It was much more community oriented back then than it is now. It's a lot
Yeah.
more fractured now.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
felt very pure back then. Well, right when I got into it, it felt like it was a pretty wholesome place for the most part. You know, there was a very small corner of the internet that like hated PUA and shit like that and tried to expose them and everything. But like for the most part, I think that was a reaction to like a lot of the positivity it was doing to people. You know, love systems, the underground dating seminars, which the boot camp I did or whatever. But like it just felt like very pure back then. I don't know, because I guess, yeah, partially because of the internet and the online dating wasn't even a factor at that point. So like you had to rely on yourself to learn these skills and go out there face to face, which just um either you took action or you like lost. You know, you weren't gonna have success. It was that simple.
It was a lot more positive.
Yeah.
I will definitely agree with you on that. Yeah, wholesome is another way of putting it. I would say that things started going downhill when Julian had his fiasco and the CNN interview. That's when I saw that's when RSD started really watering down their advice. That's when the mainstream community started focusing on pickup and like, whoa, you guys are all like fucking crazy, you know,
Mm.
or not looking for consent, like all kinds of BS
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that. Uh, so yeah, I think, and dude, I learned so much from Julian in his early videos. I've met him before multiple times in real life. I like him. He's a really nice, chill dude. I can't say
Yeah.
anything bad about him on that level. But I just lost so much respect for him with that CNN interview. Did you guys watch that?
Yeah. 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 He's kind of stuttering and nervous, and yeah, it
Well, it's
was
not
it.
even the fact that he's nervous. It's just the fact that he's completely backtracking, apologizing. What the fuck are you apologizing for? You made a joke, controversial joke, maybe a joke in poor taste, but you didn't do anything wrong. And then there was also, okay, I'm kind of going on tangents tonight, but there was also like this idea at the time because basically a lot of people in the RSD community were like saying like, hey, dude, like what the fuck, like this was like not cool, like you should have doubled down and like stood up for what you believe for. And then finally Tyler I don't know if you guys saw this, but he made a
Yeah.
post responding to it, and he's like, yeah, we had to do that for publicity's sakes, and that's what you have to do when you're going through these like media storms. And then, even though I fucking hate Trump, that's one of the things he proved wrong. You think if Trump backed down and like started apologizing every time he had a controversy, he would have been president? Fuck no, right?
No.
He
Hmm.
kind of paved the way that actually people respect you a lot more and people like you a lot more if you actually own, your shit and you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, so what? Right. There's that famous moment in the debate where she's like, Minka Kelly's like, or yeah, I think that's her name, Minka Kelly. She's no, not Minka Kelly. That famous Fox blonde news anchor, but she was saying like, you've called women fat pigs, useless, blah blah, and then it's like a pretty serious allegation, right? And he's
Mm.
like, looks at her and says, only Rosie O'Donnell, and everyone just starts laughing.
Uh,
Like if Julian had a response like that, it could have
Epic.
it would have been totally different.
Would have broke the internet, man. That would have changed the trajectory of history. No, that's I get it, man. Look, I like the overall commentary that we've had here, and I want to build on this, right? I'm going to ask you both. Actually, I'm going to ask yourself, Alex. I also want to get Scotty's take on this, about the trajectory of where we are going now. Yeah, so I want to type, and I want to add a few layers as well, because of course, like Alex, I remember those RSD inner circles. I was part of them. I remember meeting the guys. They're my friends to this day. They're just fucking great guys, like just
Yeah.
just bros, right?
Two of my
Um,
best friends I met in the RSD inner circle.
Yep, yep. Then these guys have like just they're all in different parts of the world. They've just supported me and been homies for
And with me.
fucking 10 plus years. These are great dudes, man. And I'm genuinely happy to see them succeed. Like genuinely when they're doing things, it feels fucking good to see that shit. So
Yeah.
that was good space. And again, like where Scotty came from, GLL, they're like that too. Those were fucking great guys, man. That's an amazing community. And like what we're doing now, like winner within forums. There's an amazing brotherhood that we have there too, and almost like 3,000 dudes there, and we're brothers, man. It's an amazing thing. But like looking at this kind of tour that we've had of this whole evolution of this scene, right? It starts with the game, the book, The Game, and there's a lot of people who get seduced by this and start being quite fascinated with the game. And then there's like almost this backlash era, right? I don't know if you're aware of this, Alex, but there was this whole like community that was really hating on PUAs. It was called like PUA hate, right? That was the initial, yeah, that was the initial like backlash era, right? And that was where a lot of the like looks maxing and black pill ideas like really manifested and took root. And that was a big thing in that part of the internet. So this kind of festering rage seems to kind of seep into like red pill content around this time. There's the MGTOW and the black pill, and these things are like coming up and coalescing. And it's at this moment we've got all these different ideologies and spaces, and it's almost like the base emotion of the overall collective scene is just like fucking anger, like logic, theory, data, statistics. It's this really strange mental space that the whole scene is in, right? When we know what actually, attracts women is being a cool, confident, like dude with good self-esteem. Now, clearly, what's going on here is not sustainable. This is fucking insane. And
Well,
there's chaos in all domains of life, but this is a lot of fuckery. Now, question I have is, um, where do you see it going from here? What do you think? Are we gonna find a solution to this? Are we gonna where are we gonna go from here, man? Do you see things like cold approach being embraced by the public at large to the extent that they were in the cold approach in the RSD days, or do you think we're just in a very weird time now? Where do you see this all going?
yeah, so just to clarify, I don't believe cold approach was ever embraced by the public. It was maybe more embraced by people who read the book, but that's still like less than like what 1% of like the overall population. I think if you talked about cold approach around 2015 to the average person, they would have a semi-similar reaction to what they have now, someone who's not familiar with pickup. But within, I think where you're right, if you talk about within the manosphere, cold approach did have a different perception than it does now. Like 2015, 2014, cold approach, yeah, of course, dude, fucking awesome.
Yep.
Best self-developed.
Yeah.
Versus now, you're going to see a lot of like on different sides of the internet, like, oh, dude, no, girls don't want to be harassed. You know, they're going to call the police.
Mm.
No, man, you have to be 6'1". No, it's a waste of time. No, you got to go to the like. So within the master is different in terms of words going. Yeah, I mean, I've tried to answer this question a few times in like videos I've done, and I have some videos on this. But essentially, I mean, again, it's always really hard to predict the future. I think it's going to, this is me maybe being pessimistic, but I'm just trying to be realistic. I see it as going in a similar direction as it's going now, but with a potential for the pendulum to swing. So, like, you see this a lot with politics when people go too far to the left, then the pendulum swings to the right and vice versa. There is a chance, and I think we're also seeing this now with feminism, for example. We're really seeing now because the Me Too thing was such a big thing and like hardcore feminism, we're kind of seeing the pendulum actually swinging the other way now. So I hope and I think there's a decent chance that with the like the whole red pill, black pill thing, that the pendulum might swing the other way back to more of like a pickup holistic approach,
Mm.
uh, where it's like, hey, yeah, like here's how you develop your social skills, here's how you develop confidence. There's a chance it could happen, or maybe not. A big part of this also that we haven't talked about is the way the algorithms work on these social media companies. There's a really great documentary called the fuck is it called? It's called The Social Dilemma that really
Oh yeah.
talks about how
Yeah.
the algorithm basically encourages that kind of content, that kind of like angry or like, you know, like fucking like quick fix type of content. And our content is really not going to be like as encouraged by the algorithm because it's like more long form, like here's how you get better, right? That's not as sexy to the algorithm as some random chick getting kicked off fresh and fit for being a 304. So the algorithm is I think a big part of the problem. And I don't know what they're going to do. There's a chance that there might be under public pressure to revise their algorithm and not really push like the clickbaity, super anger driven stuff to the top. I mean, there's a lawsuit, I believe, right now going on with Google and a family. That's a whole side story, but it could go. I'm not sure which direction the algorithm will go in. Depends on, right now there's a new CEO of YouTube. Doesn't seem like he's any better than Susan. Maybe he'll get fired in a year. There'll be a different CEO. It's hard to tell, but I think the algorithm will play a big role in terms of the direction of the manosphere. I think there's two possibilities. Either it keeps going in the same direction, which is just more this like brain dead, like outrage porn type of shit, or the pendulum could swing the other way. And it actually could come back closer to what was like 2014. We'll see.
Same question to you,
And
Brian.
I think this cold approach is not really a sexy thing in 2024 and 2023, whatever. It's just not like there's a lot of smart marketing geniuses out there who are like capitalizing on this, that are this get rich quick scheme type of shit where you don't have to work for it, because cold approach requires work. Like Alex said before, it's going to require like it's like you got to take action at the end of the day, and it's just not a sexy thing, man. And people are capitalizing on these, I guess, young impressionable guys like, yo, we could get you, we'll line up the dates for you, the VA type of thing. Like, and yet we've worked with a lot of these clients who are terribly unfulfilled by that, like premeditated, just setting up dates type of thing. They're not inwardly changing whatsoever. Like, we all know, like, that's what it's going to take. It's going to require going out, taking action, becoming a more social person, doing things that really stretch your comfort zone. So guys are not going to be excited about doing that. It's like, that's the bottom line. I mean, so yeah, I do think it's going to continue to get worse, man. I do think people are going to, with the advent of technology and AI already blowing up and stuff, it's going to be at the point where there's like robots. And I don't know where it could go, man. There's really no ceiling to it. And it's quite scary. And I guess we can only try to balance it out by really pushing hard against it, of like cold approach. And at the end of the day, I think our only saving grace is that they're going to be extremely unfulfilled. Women will, at the end of the day, it's going to be like a revolt of some kind. They're not making any growth. We're not like becoming the guys we want to become, becoming attractive males. Like having a date it's literally a couple notches above calling over an escort service. Like, are you really developing inwardly at that point? I had a girl come from Tampa the other night off of Tinder, and it was like she came, met my parents, and like I just fucked her. It was like there is no, like, that is not even close to the same satisfaction of going out and creating out of thin air, like with a stranger, and fucking her like the same day. It's just like, it's so much more rewarding, bro. You feel that, like, that growth, that excitement. I wanted to like share that with all my friends, and like it was like an exciting time of life, And so, yeah, unfortunately, I think we can all we can do is our part, man, and try to like push this stuff, And maybe it takes a little bit more entertainment, because some of this type of content could get boring after a while. And at the end of the day, you need to do some form of action. If you can't get over that hurdle, sign up, get a mentor, do something about it. It's good, because that shit is primarily entertainment. You know what I mean? This is not really entertainment, dude. So that's always going to have a wider reach. It's going to be some guys who want to learn about girls. It's going to have a lot of guys who are just like pissed off at girls. It has a much wider reach. That, to their own admission, they're like, yo, this is entertainment / oh, we're giving so much value type of shit. But maybe we're going to have to do a little bit more entertainment to get these guys, interested, whether that's more in field footage. Guys tend to like that. I enjoy these podcasts, these just conversations, which is good, but maybe a little bit more entertainment on our part would go far. I think Alex does a great job with like these, speed dating and bringing girls on the show. And that's kind of like entertainment / some value. It's, so something like that to counteract all the negativity.
Can I quickly comment on what Brian said? You actually said, I mentally wrote down 4 interesting things that I want to comment on, most of which I agree with. So I do agree with you that what I try to go for is infotainment, where I give people entertainment, but I also teach in the process. I really think YouTube 2024 or TikTok, whatever, information needs to be bundled in with entertainment if you want to have a chance of gaining, unless you're like fucking, I don't know, you're a doctor giving medical advice. Even then, probably you still need some level of entertainment. So
Yeah.
yeah, I probably do that. It's not always easy, but so yeah, so I do agree with that. Um, the thing that you said before that, which I partially disagree with. So, well, let me kind of clarify. You were talking about how it's so much more rewarding if you go out and meet a girl from cold approach than if you get a girl to come over from Tinder. And I totally believe that's the case for you, and that's the case for a lot of guys. But it does vary on the person. For me, for example, there's no difference in terms of level of reward if it's a girl from TikTok, or I mean, a girl from Tinder versus a girl from cold approach, simply because I'm at a point where just like this, I don't need self growth in those categories, right? So for me, it's the same. But I will acknowledge that for some guys, it is different. And I will also acknowledge that one advantage cold approach does have is that it definitely is going to create a lot more self growth and self development than dating apps. I think dating apps have other advantages. I think they're more efficient if you want to get laid. But in terms of like, hey, growing as a person, for sure, cold approach will definitely be the winner. It's going to be above social circle. It's going to be above dating apps. I think cold approach is number one in terms of self growth and self improvement. So yeah, but I think we just got to add nuance to it. Depends on the person, the place where they're at in life. In terms of, I guess the first thing you
I don't
said,
necessarily mean growth either. I also meant like it's more exhilarating, it's more exciting. It's like you're breathing the fresh air, you're going outside and actually accomplishing something. It's like saying to a football player, "Do you ever get sick of like that excitement when you step on the field for game day?" I don't know. It's like the adrenaline's going and stuff like that. It's not necessarily self growth. It's just a sense of like living and actually when bullets are flying and then having to like take action and you're confronted with conflict and you can't replicate that feeling. It's like it's incredible, you know.
yeah,
It's
for
like
some
jumping out
people,
of an airplane.
yeah, for some people, for sure. I mean, I would definitely say me, and I know other people like me for whom there's no difference in exhilaration, whether
Mm-hmm.
your girl from cold approach. But again, I'm kind of anomaly. I've done it so many fucking times. Like, it's like the high has worn off because I've done it so many times. But in terms of the thing that you said earlier, you're talking about you think it's going to go downhill. Yeah, I guess actually I'm surprised, but I guess I have a little bit more of an optimistic view. I put it at like 50-50 on whether it's going to keep going downhill or the pendulum will swing the other way. Now that I think about it, I would actually maybe put even at 60 or 70% the pendulum will swing the other way. Uh, I don't know. I can't really base that in any kind of like hard statistic. Just kind of like a good feeling I have that there's a good chance, but it's far from certain. It could keep getting worse. That's for sure. But I guess we'll see what happens. All we can do is put out the kind of content that we think will make the Manosphere a better place. But the problem is that we have such small reach. Between all of us, take every single legit dating coach I know. What's our reach? 2%, 5%,
Right.
maybe at most. So that's the hard part.
Mm. I'm gonna weigh in with what I think might be, in my opinion, and it's certainly like what I want to contribute and what I think is going to be what supports men. I think the
Mhm.
word is community. I think community and groups and brotherhood is what can really support men in being the kind of men that we need and the kind of men who can succeed and be positive, not only like for the women who are in their life, but for the other men too. And I know this because I came up in a community and now I run that community and there's thousands of men there. The right community can change your fucking life. One that's
Uh-huh.
action oriented, not mental masturbation, not theory, that's based on go out, go on dates, lift weights, work on yourself, work on your image, work on your skincare, work on your style. When all these things converge and it's pure self improvement with a basis in consistent massive action, and you're surrounded by your brothers who are supporting you every day, we built this, man. And like, I did it as a volunteer. I do it literally for free because I love it. I've seen how much transformation has occurred from that in being radically honest. I write everything, all the bad things that happened to me, all the positive things, many, many difficult moments in my journey where I didn't understand why it was happening and so on. Being radically open and sharing. what I saw was men from all over the world just embodied these principles of self-improvement and taking action and consistently, regardless of like there's guys who are 5'5", there's guys who are like I'm 6'5", there's from all different backgrounds. If you take the massive action, you're supported by guys who actually give a fuck about you, who actually care. You can really go places. And right now, there's hundreds of people on this little forum, right? And they're all consistent, showing up, doing the work. That's beautiful. And you can set these things up. It's what I think is going to be the missing layer because we as humans are tribal. Like we like being around people, we like coalescing around people, we like actually coming together and creating things. That's why we have this world, right? It's an instinctual thing that we have, and this has the possibility to be redemptive for a lot of men. So that's what I'm gonna throw into the mix. I think that's where a lot of success can be found in the future. Now, conscious of
Alex, my
time.
quick question, real quick, is how did you meet your girlfriend, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, not at all. I met her on Bumble.
Oh, okay, cool, man. All right.
Sick.
Yeah, we started
Um,
off as like friends with benefits for a year and a half, and then we started dating, got into a one-way open relationship. Yeah, well, that's basically it.
Sick. That actually takes us on to the other. So I've got two questions, and I know, Alex, you've been very generous with your time. We don't want to keep you all night,
It's
man.
okay, dude. I got another like 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's perfect, man. We appreciate you being so gracious, bro. But like, the question I have, this was one pinged over from Brian. It says, can you talk to us about the pros and cons of being in a relationship versus the old Alex who is playing the field?
Hmm. Well, my relationship is a very non-traditional relationship. Like the vast majority of guys who are in a relationship are not in a one-way open relationship. So for me, there's essentially no cons because I can still hook up with other girls if I want. If I'm just being all like truly honest, like every year, me and my girlfriend have like, loved each other more and more, as corny as that sounds. And like in the last year, if I look back at the last year, I really haven't hooked up with that many girls. I
Mm,
literally, if I look at just pure numbers, it's slower than like it's right
yeah.
around. It's like the same numbers as when I first got into games. So it's like when I got into game, it was like going up, and then it's just kind of like it's again, it's not because I can, it's by choice. It's just like if my choice is like spending time with my girlfriend who I know we're going to have a good time. I know we're going to laugh. I know, I love her. I love her company. I know we're going to have a good conversation versus going on a date with a random girl where it's like a toss up. Even if it goes well, it's not going to be as good as with my girlfriend, who I have so much in common with, but, maybe it'll be decent. It's like I'll just pick like, my girlfriend, for obvious reasons. Also, the other big part of it is kind of what I was mentioning earlier is business. Is just like I've been so busy with like business now. It's just I just don't running now that I'm running two companies. It's just I haven't really had time, honestly, to go on dates. Like I typically finish everything around like 3:30, 4 a.m. And then like I'll pop on like maybe my friend's podcast or like chat with some friends who are still awake. But like I don't have like no one's gonna go on date at 4 a.m. So it's like, but so are we assuming are we assuming a traditional relationship or you still want
Correct.
to from a traditional relationship, from a monogamous relationship? Okay, I think what I've seen that can happen is guys kind of start letting themselves go. It could be physically, could be game wise. They kind of just become very complacent. Uh I think that being single and on the hunt can actually give you motivation. Like I gotta go to the gym, I gotta stay on my shit, and a lot of guys just kind of start backsliding when they get into relationships. Again, that doesn't have to happen. You can prevent that, but that's just what I see happen. So becoming complacent. Um, that's really the only one that I can think of that's a disadvantage. I mean, it depends on how important it is for you to fuck random girls. Again, like I can do that. So for me, it's not like any kind of disadvantage. But if it's something that's important to you, then I guess that would be a disadvantage. Um, if the relationship becomes toxic, you can drain on your soul. I don't know, but again, it doesn't need to happen. I mean, there's extreme cases. Like if you're like a simp who's giving your girlfriend money, that could be a disadvantage, but that's like an extreme case, I'm assuming. Dude, I fucking had what this there was this homeless guy that met through a friend. I let him stay at my place for like a few months. And you know why he was homeless despite having a decent job where he was making 3,000 a month or so? Because he was giving 70% of his paycheck to his girlfriend. And the girlfriend actually had a home, but she literally wouldn't let him into her home because she was embarrassed about the fact that he was homeless and she didn't want her dad to meet him. But he was homeless because he was giving her 70% of his paycheck. I mean, like, so yeah, that's a disadvantage. But obviously, that's like an extreme. I could go on and on about this guy.
What about this situation? How you said most guys aren't in open relationships, yet a lot of guys are lying about it, which is usually can lead to a lot of like, you know, tiptoeing
Lying
around
about
situations.
cheating?
Yeah, cheating and shit like that. So I think that could potentially be a lot of problems for guys who are
Oh
involved in
yeah,
that because because most guys will hook up with as many girls as they can. You know what I mean? So that's always a dilemma with guys who are in relationships. They're like on this fence and they can't be as transparent about it as you are, man. So
yeah. Then I think the solution is to avoid being in a monogamous relationship. I don't. I had look. I have on my. This is Natty's my fifth girlfriend when I was like 23. My second girlfriend. I cheated on her once, and I never got caught, but it caused me so much stress, and
Yeah.
right,
I
that's what
also
I
felt
meant.
like
Yeah,
I felt like shit, honestly.
Yeah.
yeah,
Just
same here,
didn't.
man. It didn't sit
So
well with me. I like had to call my girlfriend instantly and be like, "Yo, I can't do this." And I came fully clean to it. But it was not a good feeling, man, at all.
you're a
Mm.
better man than me. I kept it. I didn't say anything. I had my
Yeah,
own justifications, like it would hurt her so much, but at the end of the day, like yeah. So I believe in transparency. I think you should be like upfront about that kind of stuff. When getting into a relationship, hey, you know yourself. If you're gonna want to fuck other girls, then just talk to the girl about that beforehand. There's just going to be a good amount of girls, not every girl, not even the majority of girls, but there's going to be a decent amount of girls. They're going to be okay with something along the lines of what I have, as long as you present it the right way and you also give her some element of control. So, meaning like, it's not like I'm going to do whatever
Mm.
I want. It's like, hey, what are you really uncomfortable with? Like for my girlfriend, she doesn't care if I fuck other girls, but what really would make her uncomfortable is if I start going on date, like doing dating stuff or, like going on trips with other girls, or if I start hanging out with my exes, right? Those are two things that make her really uncomfortable. So, those things are off the table. So kind of having that level, that conversation where you give your partner some element of control. But yeah, in terms of like traditional relationships, I think that's basically it for cons. Pros is that you have more time you can dedicate to business and other things. You have constant companionship. It is really good to have someone. And if this is not your girlfriend, then you should break up with her because she's the wrong girlfriend. Someone who will stand by your side no matter what. Someone who will always be there to support you. Someone who will do anything and everything to help you within reason. So yeah, I mean, I would say like probably those things.
Fuck yeah. Last question for the
Hmm.
podcast to close.
I got one more real quick, man. And this is
Sure.
interesting because I know this is good. A lot of people think that women don't want variety. I think that's the overall consensus. If you're listening to like some red pill stuff, that girls want to just be with one guy. I want to get Alex's thoughts on that. Is that like I tend to, whether it's anecdotal from my end, I think women, especially nowadays, want to fuck a lot of dudes, like just like
Hmm.
us. Like it's but they try to spin it like, oh no, they just want to be with one guy. You know what I mean? And like even on Tinder, it's like I've had girls just openly say like I'm a serial dater now. Like it's like this dopamine of just like date after date after date. They're more down than ever. It seems like, to fuck a lot of guys, because it gives them that sense of anonymity of not having to come clean, not have to worry about judgment and consequences. You're a faceless person on the internet. You're like in a different category, and they could just be like, whatever, you know what I mean? But it seems like that's such a bad argument. Like that's women just want to be with one guy, bro. They love fucking a lot of dudes, especially now, especially like it's very similar, men and women. I just want to get Alex's thoughts on that.
Yeah.
I would partially agree, partially disagree. I mean, I think we can speculate about what women want, but we do have pretty good data on what women do. And most women, again, there's 5% or so that are the exception. They do have, pretty high body counts, but like the 95%, they have sex with 5, 6, maybe 7 guys throughout their lifetime. So they're not having that much sex. In terms of, or at least not having that many partners. They might be having a lot of sex with those partners. In terms of, do women want variety? I'm sure there's some do. I think there are definitely some that do. I think there are some that don't, and I think there are some that are in the middle. And I think that guys are the same way. Now, I do think there's a lot more of a percentage of men who want variety. So I do think on average, more men want variety than women. But yeah, for sure, there's some women that want variety. And like I said, there's the women who want variety. Like, and I would say those are maybe like really want variety. And those are maybe like 5-10%. Then you got the women who don't want variety at all. And those may be like 20%. And then you got in the middle, the girls who are like, they're curious about the idea of having more variety, but they also want to have a boyfriend. So they got like, there's somewhere in between. So yeah,
well,
I
that's
don't
the
know.
thing with hypergamy, right? If they are just hypergamous and everything, and they just want to like move on to the bigger and better thing, and they're always looking out of their eye for something better, it would kind of imply like
Well, I
they're
don't
speaking
believe
out of
in
both.
hyperbole, or at the very least,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think highly overplayed
yeah.
and over exaggerated.
Right.
So yeah, that I mean, we could have a whole discussion about that, but I'm not the biggest fan of the hyper.
Okay, cool.
All right, man. Cool.
Yeah. My question to kind of wrap up was love between men and women in 2024. Are you optimistic?
I mean, I'm in love with my girlfriend. I think love totally still exists, a human emotion. Like in terms of what, am I optimistic about it existing or about it? Like, do I think it's going to decrease? Like, can you specify that, please?
Sure. Assessing the terrain from the people that you work with, the man on the street, your own sense of being so attuned to what's going on. Do you think men and women, um, they still have the capacity to properly, without wounding, without being impacted by our polarized culture, like authentically love each other? Is this still something that we as men can expect in our life, or do you think this is going to become increasingly remote and it's not necessarily something that many are going to have in
I
this
don't think
life?
it's going to become remote. I think the majority of people are capable of love, and the good thing about love is that it it's not logical. So you could have total differences, but you could still love that person. Uh, I do think it's going to become there's less people are capable of love now than they were 30 or 40 years ago, and
Mm.
um, I think in 30, 40 years, it's going to be less, but it's still going to be the majority of people. I think or at least half of people are capable of love and are going to love at some point in their life. It's just, yeah, I mean, like, how do you like let's think about like what would prevent love? Well, number one would be like if someone becomes a sociopath, right? Well, sociopathy is something you're generally born with. I don't think there's any data that there's like more sociopaths being born now than there was before. So that one we can scratch off the list. Would be the other one. Well, the other one would be is if you don't get a chance to experience love because you never meet a girl. I mean, on the surface, the data, like I've looked at it, it's like, holy shit. If you look at guys 18 to 30% of them are virgins. or something like that. I believe it's 30%, 27% report they've never had sex. But if you actually like break it down by the ages, when you go 25 and up, it's like less than 2% are actually never had sex. So even that I think is overblown. Like that statistic, the Red Pill community just keeps pushing. But when you
Mm.
actually look into the exact details, it doesn't really pan out. Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why people would be significantly less likely to experience a very primal and normal human emotion in the next in the next several decades. But I do think it'll probably be a bit less common, but still common is my answer.
Mm. Brian,
Hey,
you
Alex,
want
and yeah, this is my last question for you, man. What would be your like in order to experience that? What would be your prescription for a young guy just starting out and he just kind of doesn't know where to start? He's looking around the internet. He's kind of just he just wants to get his feet in the water. And what would be your prescription, man?
Well, I would definitely never advise people to focus on love. Like I would never be like, okay, your goal is to find love. I think
Okay,
love.
not necessarily love. Yeah, just not necessarily that. He just wants to like get some lays. He wants to like, have some dates, have maybe a rotation. He's testing out the waters. What would you really,
Yeah,
where
like
would you direct him?
the really short version would be to go out there and practice cold approach. Also get really, really good photos, get a good Tinder profile, get a good Bumble profile. I mean, it's all the same photos
Yeah,
anyway. Learn some text game, combine that with cold approach. Also at the same time, go to the gym, try to get in good shape. Try to, optimize your looks within reason as much as possible. Get good fashion. If you don't know anything about fashion, either get a girl that you know that seems like she would know what she's talking about, or just get a fashion consultant. Go to a good barber, get like a nice maybe skin fade. I mean, it depends on your hairstyle. Get your beard
yeah,
lined up. Make sure that your health is in order. Make sure that your hormones are good. I mean, if you have low testosterone, that's going to manifest in like how you interact with women and your drive and all that. I would say it's like a combination of those things. It's also really good to get some good wings. I don't like the idea of like, oh, just build a social circle, bro. But
yeah,
I do think it's good to like actually, yeah, network with people and find people who have similar goals to you as you. And you can do a lot of like value trades and like just there's a whole thing there. But yeah, I mean, there's also just as a side tangent, we talk about a lot about how like, oh, there's more incels, there's more virgins nowadays than there were, but we rarely talk about how a lot of guys report having less friends now than they did 20 years ago. I
hmm
believe, and don't quote me on the exact specifics, but something like 20 years ago, the average guy had like 5 friends or 6 friends. Now it's one. So that's problematic as well. If you don't have any friends, start with that.
crazy?
Get some friends. Friends are important, and like not virtual friends, real life friends.
yeah. That's some great advice, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
man.
was my follow up about how important it is because it seems like a lot of us who have really got had some level of success. It's like you met this guy that you're saying S, and we've either had some sort of mentor in some sort of way or a good wing that really helped propel us to like a new level or open our eyes to see what's possible. You know what I mean? So yeah, I would definitely stress that as well. That I mean, it may be hard. Like you may have to go through 5 different guys, say some shit like that. But it's available, especially with the resources out there. Don't just keep it on a digital level. Would be my thing.
For sure, bro. For sure. All right, guys.
All right,
Killer
appreciate you,
episode.
man.
Killer episode as always. Alex, let them know where they can find you. Shout yourself out. We'll put all your socials below as well.
Yeah, just check out my YouTube channel. Just it's called Playing with Fire. Where else? We have a website, playingfire.com. We have a lot of, so if you don't like videos, you prefer to read, we basically transcribe all the articles as well as many other ones so you can read our tips and guides. Like we cover everything: how to get good photos, how to write a good bio, how to text girls, how to have threesome, like literally anything you can think of. We probably cover for free either on my YouTube channel or on my website. We also have a forum section where you can literally ask me a question. I check it about twice a week. Forums.playingfire.com. But yeah, I would say that's a good start.
Fuck yeah. We're going to put all the information below where they can find you, where they can learn more about you. Thank you for your time, brother. And
Appreciate you, Alex. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me. It was a fun discussion.
Yeah, definitely.